Oh my, Magnum Opus 1.0 approaching. On this 5-part Top X, I will share the 50 best games I've played, and explain why you should also play them eventually. As these are only games I've played, for most, heavily, this isn't a fitting best 50 games of all time, so your favorite games may just be ones I haven't played yet. I'm also going to be limiting to one game per explicit series or line unless I feel a second really did something to make it stand out from the series. And compilations and remakes are fair game if I consider them on par or better than the games in their original release. This will keep my favorite long-running series from filling the list. Let's take a look at 20 to 11, and be sure to go back and watch the others if you haven't first. For gamers who grew up with Mega Man, it was easy to identify as the series started to change and grow around when you did. The X sub-series built on the framework of the first games, but it expanded into a much more realistic world, with more complexities, demanding more from the player. Unfortunately, the series faltered a little and completely lost its way starting with Mega Man X7. This collection will give you easy access to the first 6 and best games in the sub-series, while doing away with mandatory passwords. This is a must-own for every fan of action or platformer games. Despite being on the DS, forcing in unnecessary touch mechanics, and having a worse, but still good story, this is the definitive custom Robo in America. After acquiring a taste on the GameCube, Custom Robo Arena offers a full-flavored serving of robot battling goodness, with more parts, more Holosseums, more gameplay options, and more difficulty. This game will keep you busy for a long time if you attempt everything you can and unlock the final few parts. Then you have online where you can fight other players or show off the clever scene you made in your diorama mode. The fact this is still one of the best looking games of all time is a testament to how incredible this game is. With the GameCube came the hardware necessary to really make a fast racing game with impressive visuals you glimpse as you race around the track. It only stood to help Sega help develop this installment, with every classic racer returning joined by 10 new ones, and with such an improved engine to allow for better visuals, tighter controls, and a better sense of speed. This is easily the best F-Zero game. Mega Man has rarely moved into the RPG genre, but this game is a great reason why it should dabble in RPGs more. The political and philosophical story themes of the X-Series fit at home in an RPG, and it manages to translate many of the elements from the X-Series into the RPG gameplay to give it a fresh twist. You remember sub-tanks you had to fill by collecting energy? In this game you'll find energy cubes throughout the world, and dropped by enemies that fill your sub-tanks, and this is how you recover health primarily. Special weapons are translated loosely as 2 sub-weapons you equip that can inflict different statuses, buffs, or debuffs, steal items, generate weapon energy, or just deal damage. Allowing up to 3 attacks per turn, this creates an interesting dynamic of not dealing as much damage to save up weapon energy for the next turn, likely to execute an action trigger. Your powerful special moves that all nod to games like Paper Mario, with the outcome dependent on your performance playing the action trigger minigame. The action triggers can allow you to release a ton of missiles and bullets onto the enemy party, let you transform into a boss, or inflict an array of status effects. The game also includes a turn forecast, so you can know when it will be an enemy's turn to attack. Something other RPGs really should do. Armors are also translated as hyperforms that grant buffs and occasionally equip you with super powerful weapons and new action triggers. You can also buff and augment your characters with force metal. This game also looks incredible for a GameCube game. What is Jazz Jackrabbit? I just discovered this channel and never watched this video. In short, give Sonic a gun, vehicles to ride, and I'm describing Shadow the Hedgehog, aren't I? You do that properly, omit the damn 4th Chaos Emeralds, and you have Jazz Jackrabbit. It's a lot like if Sonic and Mega Man had a baby. Something has always bothered me about Sonic. His games are all about running extremely fast, but that makes dodging enemies hard, and if you don't dodge enemies, you lose all the speed. There's no way to get your fix of speed. Having a projectile solves this problem if you can get fast enough reflexes. You see an enemy, and you fire, and you can keep going fast. Unfortunately, Jazz Jackrabbit isn't as addicted to speed as Sonic, but there are still moments the gun makes speed sections flow better. Like Mega Man, the game also has many different kinds of projectiles you can fire that are good in different situations. If only the game had received a sequel that truly capitalized on what the rabbit can do better than the hedgehog. Not a weird reboot. We almost got a fully 3D sequel though. Jazz Jackrabbit 2 refines the mechanics of the first game in exchange for slowing the speed, by making the levels easier to navigate as well as introducing Jazz's brother Spaz. The final game in the popular Mega Man Battle Network series ended the series strongly, tightening up, overhauling, and fixing things the past couple games had found themselves crippled by. I suppose I should explain the somewhat complex gameplay system in case some of the viewers skip to the series to become a Pokemon master many times over. The Battle Network games are action card battle games where you select powerful special attacks and then move around on a 3x3 grid, attacking enemies when they expose themselves, setting up combos and dodging attacks. Every chip has a letter code, however, limiting what you can select if you pay no attention to the letter code. It requires strategy and reflexes. The 6th installment replaces the unbalanced Soul Unison that granted brief special abilities with a Soul Cross system that lasts until you take super effective damage. It also adds a beast mechanic that powers up these crosses temporarily. However, overuse of beast mode will leave you fatigued and unable to cross. A last-ditch beast mode in this state will make Mega Man go berserk, and act randomly, and then leave Mega Man crippled. All of that balances this game out. You feel as powerful as you should with a good folder and familiarity with the crosses. You know the risks of beast mode, and harsh punishments for the foolish use of beast mode. And crosses are fair. The missions to unlock the crosses are also fairly creative and fun, requiring you to use the Navi you are going to cross with, and you need to use these Navis further to open up paths on the internet. Oh, and this game has a side quest that populates the world with penguin NPCs. I never finished that one because what is better than penguins everywhere? Even in your bathroom! More games need side quests that populate the world with random animals that offer no real reward for completing. The follow-up to the Mega Man Battle Network games struggled a lot to find its footing, narratively and mechanically, but ultimately ended strong by accepting it didn't have to entirely remake what made Battle Network work, by replacing the wonky transformations with a system that took the best bits of a style change and souls and granting the player far more control over the field on a level comparable to Battle Network. It also made some other major changes over the games that came before it in both series, such as great performances granting multiple cards per battle including secret cards. Another very necessary improvement was allowing access to cards horizontally and vertically, which the other Star Force games locked out to certain transformations. This had made the battle system painfully slow. To balance this out, they introduced a clever system of better cards being larger, and it possible for cards to overlap and be unselectable unless sacrificed for a booster card. In short, it improved everything about the previous Star Force games, except that it subdued the more mature storyline centered around a child suffering depression and helping other depressed individuals while helping himself. Famously or perhaps infamously known as what Zelda should have been after the jump to 3D, it really does feel like what Ocarina of Time could have been in another timeline where the Zelda series stayed true to its exploratory roots. Tell me these locations wouldn't fit in a Zelda game. I have a fond spot for the first Zelda and the ideas it tried. It made number 44 after all. Xenoblade greatly improves many of these concepts, such as the huge world to explore, the instantly meme-tastic dialogue, and the loads of side quests and secrets. But Xenoblade also does a lot of its own things, like being an action RPG, but not an action RPG like Zelda, an action RPG with party members, and level ups, and the story is fitting for a game with the Xeno title. It's not a stretch to say this is one of the top 3 best Wii games. I think the second is a better game overall, with the extra exploration, summons, Jin, and the epic conclusion. But I really can't help thinking of them as one huge game. It's hard for games, movies, or TV to make a world that feels real. Everywhere there is subtext and references to historical events and politics. This is the game that has traversable paths for NPCs to make their movements plausible. Where doesn't feel like it was created just to serve a story. It's fleshed out enough it feels like it always existed, and you are peeking in. The gameplay is also solid with more sophisticated puzzles than you'd find in a Zelda game, that use your power to manipulate the elements to their full extent. Shovel Knight is amazing in several ways, such as how it pays so much homage and yet feels new, and not particularly derivative, or how polished and full of content the game is for a Kickstarter game. It calls back my favorite memories of playing Mega Man or DuckTales, but none of the negative memories from those games. Every character is memorable, it feels iconic. And I'm sure the game is actually more difficult than the old NES games, but doesn't suffer because it did away with the lives, and has many checkpoints through the levels. There are only 10 games left on this list, so be sure to come back for the next Top X to see games I think are mandatory for a self-respecting gamer to at least try. Actually, this list includes games I feel every gamer needs to give a shot. I guess I need an episode question. What Wii game is your favorite, and why does it appeal to you? I talked about Xenoblade, but did you miss what Xeno means and what the Xeno series is really about? I also referenced this old video, and it's still relevant. There will be third parties in Smash Bros. 5, inevitably. Or maybe you are a golden sun, and missed is Wayward Flat. Or maybe you are from the future and want easy access to the final part. Man, now I have to actually make part of the next part before finishing this part.